So it has been an interesting past week or so for Xbox and the Xbox brand. So much, in fact, that I'm thinking about rebranding to Xbox 85. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you like that. So if you've been enjoying the coverage, be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to like and share the video. But obviously, a lot of this stuff was kicked off by the fact that Xbox decided to raise the price of Xbox Game Pass. They changed around the tiers. They got rid of some things in tiers. They added in additional fluff into tiers. And this is, of course, coming off of the fact that they've raised the price of Xbox consoles in the United States twice in 2025. Not exactly the easiest pill to swallow. Then yesterday, we had two Xbox-related videos on the channel. The first one talking about the Call of Duty situation and how, well, Call of Duty's inclusion into Game Pass didn't exactly light the world on fire. Xbox was thinking that the 30 or so million Game Pass subscribers would jump to 50 or 60 million plus very quickly after the inclusion of Call of Duty. And it doesn't seem like that indeed did happen. Of course, you could question why there's so many previous Call of Duty games that have not been added into Game Pass, but it seems like a large amount of money was lost on this sort of gamble, and it hasn't really exactly been working out in Microsoft's favor, thus causing to changes with Game Pass and all that sort of stuff. Make sure you check out that video. And then later on, we of course talked about the alleged hardware issues. No more new hardware coming in 2026, a pivot to cloud gaming. And if you take a step back and actually look at everything, I mean, it kind of does make sense. When you're potentially introducing a free thing when it comes to game streaming that allows you to watch ads in order to access a game for a couple of hours on the weekend, you take a look at what they're doing with Game Pass Ultimate. And if you have Game Pass Ultimate, you get priority to cloud access games over the other versions of Xbox Game Pass. It definitely does seem like there is a strong emphasis on that. And then you have the whole fact that, Xbox consoles aren't exactly lighting the world on fire. The system seems to have stagnated somewhat. We of course have talked about, a couple of years ago, it only sold like 1.5 to 2 million in the calendar year. We've seen we've seen different companies liquidating stuff. Costco's no longer carrying it. Sam's Club is liquidating it. I've talked about the Amazon and Walmart books that didn't have any Xbox stuff in there for the holiday season. It's been a very weird week for Xbox. But now we do have some information that has come out that seems to counteract some of the things that we have been talking about, primarily on the console side of things. So I want to talk about this with you guys and then just share my thoughts on it. So this information is coming to us from Windows Central. Now, we could get into the parasocial relationship that Windows Central has with Microsoft and Xbox. I mean, they are called Windows Central. There is a strong parasocial relationship. People that work at Xbox follow people at Windows Central. They've met up for lunch and stuff like that. The horrible parasocial relationships that I have been talking about for years. You got to keep that into account. But Windows Central did put out a report on their end that was then given a comment from Microsoft, because Microsoft contacted Windows Central to talk about some things as well. We have a response. So basically what Windows Central said was, so today, rumors began to swirl across the internet that Xbox is planning to exit hardware and move entirely to cloud gaming as the primary way to access content. I can confirm via very trusted sources that this isn't true, at least for now. From what I have been told, the hardware plans are not even up in the air and remain firmly Xbox's path forward. Xbox Series X and X production has not ceased, and new stock will go out to retailers at its usual cadence. Now, like I said, that's fine, and I'm sure that they did talk to people within Xbox. But would do you really think that they're going to come out and say to you, oh, yeah, everything's changed. Everything's kind of going to hell in a handbasket here. This, that, and the other, when you have this parasocial relationship with the company. Now, I'm not saying that Xbox people at Xbox or people at Microsoft didn't reach out and didn't say, this, that, or the other to Windows Central. But you always want to paint a positive picture because you're not just talking about your company, you're also talking about your investors. You want people to have hope, generally speaking. You don't want them to give up on things. Look at how, any console that was on its way out or slowly dying, every company always says, oh no, things are great here. What are you talking about? And then they move on to the next thing, whatever that next thing is. So, like I said, though, Microsoft did reach out to Windows Central and make a statement based on this information. We are actively investing in our future first-party consoles and devices designed, engineered, and built by Xbox. For more details, the community can revisit our agreement announcement with AMD. So, Microsoft felt the need to come out and talk about these rumors to Windows Central, once again, parasocial relationship, to kind of put a little bit of, water on the fire with that. I think that there is some sort of hardware happening behind the scenes and that they are working on something. Here is my problem with all of this. Here is my problem with every bit of refuting information that comes with this. And this is just me speaking. I'm not saying that this is factual. People are entitled to believe whatever they want. If they think Xbox is going to die tomorrow, fine. You can think that. If you think Xbox is going to thrive, fine. You can think that. I don't want Xbox to go away. I like having multiple console manufacturers and multiple platforms out there because I believe competition is very important in the gaming sphere. Competition creates growth. Competition creates competitive nature between other companies to want to do better with them. Now, you can sit there and argue and say, well, Xbox hasn't been competing for quite a while now, and you can make that case. But just being in the marketplace, I do think helps. But like I said, here's my problem with this. How many times has Xbox, Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, all these people, how many times have they looked in your face, looked at you eye to eye, and lied to you and told you information that they knew was not factually true? Great games don't sell consoles. False. That is false. Only 4 games. These are the only 4 games that are coming to PlayStation. Is Indiana Jones coming to PlayStation? No. And then literally 6 months later, Indiana Jones gets announced for PlayStation 5. False. A lie. You looked directly into people's eyes and said something that was factually incorrect. Well, RGT. Maybe they changed their mind with Indiana Jones. Maybe it was a late decision. Bullshit. You have to make the PlayStation 5 build version of the game. So if you're announcing that you are working on it, you've obviously been working on it for a long time. Like, this isn't a split decision that you just automatically make and pull completely out of the air. That's my problem with this. Microsoft notoriously gives false information, leaves out things, leaves it open-ended. Like, listen to this comment again. We are actively investing in our future first-party consoles and devices designed, engineered, and built by Xbox. For more details, blah, 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 we have an announcement with AMD. Okay, but what's the timetable on these things? What's the sort of, you kind of got to read between the lines with this. And forgive me if I'm being skeptical about it. Like, forgive me. But the problem is, the consumer has every right to be skeptical about this because you've constantly lied to the consumer during this whole generation. You raised the price of Game Pass when you told Congress that Call of Duty wasn't going to have an impact on the price of Game Pass. It did. It did. Buying up all these companies did have an effect to where everyone kind of guessed, well, it's going to have to go up in price. But you said, no, it's not going to do that. What are you talking about? It's only gone up, to $30 now. You said that Indiana Jones wasn't coming to PlayStation 5. That was a lie. You've also done Forza games. It wasn't just those 4 games. I feel like, you could lie to the people enough to the point of where eventually everyone is going to pick up on it. Eventually everyone is going to kind of read between the lines, and all because today you are actively investing in your first party devices. That doesn't mean that those devices are going to come out. Hardware gets constantly made behind the scenes and never sees the light of day. Think of how many canceled video game consoles there have been that companies have actively invested in. The Sega Neptune, the Phantom console, the M2 3DO sequel console. Companies were actively investing in those things, but they never saw the light of day. And why is that? Because things change within those companies over time, and it becomes a risk and reward situation to, do you really want to put out another console out there that's not going to do well and then bankrupt your company? Or do you want to do something different and try to remain relevant and stuff like that? So I don't know. You could believe at this point in time, you could really believe whatever you want. You could think that Xbox is, going to go ahead and go forward and make new consoles and, this, that, and the other. And the future is bright for Xbox and everything is good. And, that's fine. Anyone could feel however they want to feel about this situation, because really at the end of the day, it comes down to what ends up happening. We could be looking back on this a year or two from now and be like, oh, that was a whole bunch of nothing. Or there could be something to this. There could be more than meets the eye with this. And maybe all of these reports that keep coming out, there is some truth to them, more so than a lot of people want to recognize. It's tough to say. And why is it tough to say? Parasocial relationships. It's, I don't like them. I don't like them. But anyways, guys, that is the latest and greatest of what is going on with Xbox. Xbox says, no, we're still doing first-party consoles. We still got devices. What are devices? What do you mean a device? Talking about like the ROG handheld? I can't wait to see the sales of that. I'm sure that's going to light the world on fire at $1,000 freaking dollars. Man, oh man. And then you up the price of Game Pass right before that comes out. Good job. Good job. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Where do you lie with this? Do you think that Microsoft is being honest and that Xbox is fine and going full steam forward? Or do you think there are doubts and, potential cancellations coming in the future when it comes to Xbox hardware? Where do you see them at this time next year? Because I think there's a good chance it could be a completely different Xbox brand. And as always, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.